Hello and welcome to World Talks. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. As Moldova go to the polls this coming Sunday, at stake is not only the future of this country, but also the geopolitical puzzle in a region of strategic importance to Russia, Ukraine and the EU. Moscow is relentless in its effort to present Moldovan voters with a distorted alternative reality to influence the outcome of these elections. So what techniques and narratives are at play? To understand the Russian propaganda playbook, we reach to Mihaela Sirițanu, international relations expert, Watchdog and Watchdog.md. Hello and welcome to World Talks. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me.
So even though Moldova declared its independence from the USSR when it fell apart almost 30 years ago, it has a significant Russian-speaking population. So is Moldova's society prone to believe in this distorted Russia version of reality?
Of course, it's prone. Sadly, it's not just a particularity about our country. We see this rise in manipulation throughout Europe. So all of the electoral cycles in Europe right now are under threat of Russian propaganda and Russian implications. Obviously, Moldova, because of our ties, because we were part of the Soviet Union, there is perhaps more affinity for people to want to not as necessarily have closer ties with Russia, but go back to the history, right, to the past when they were young, when Soviet Union was functioning, when there was some sort of stability. Because since we gained our independence, we have been through quite some decades of economic and political turmoil. And a lot of these pro-Russian parties actually are targeting with precisely this narrative of stability, of the past was better, it was easier, let's go back, even though it's impossible to go back right now.
Absolutely. So we've been told Russia's SVR, Foreign Intelligence Service, claims that it's the European countries themselves who are plotting the blatant falsification of the result of Sunday's election, and also that they are even staging some sort of occupation of Moldova. How do these narratives fit into the broader pattern of Russian disinformation aimed at Moldova's democratic process?
Indeed, we are finding ourselves in a hybrid war type situation, and there is an information war that obviously has the goal to try to tilt the election results. And we have seen massive narratives, new narratives, massive propaganda that has the goal to discredit the EU. So now, because Russia is an invader country, it's completely lost its good standing with the regular citizens. Their strategy right now is to try to paint the EU as being just as bad as Russia. So we see all of these narratives that the EU wants to steal our resources. The EU is a colonizing power and it will colonize us. Or why would you change? You changed an empire for another empire. That's another type of narrative that's circulating. All of this has the intention to paint the EU as being equally bad. And that's where our work comes in. We're trying very hard to shift this narrative and look at it or educate our citizens to look at it, that how is our relationships with each of these big powers and where do we gain more? Because in our relationship with Russia, through this last decade, all we've seen is manipulation, all we've seen is threats. They are either threatening us that they will cut the gas and electricity, or they're threatening that they will put an embargo on our exports, which they've already done in the past. So there has never been a partnership between Moldova and Russia. There is, however, a partnership between the EU and Moldova. Yes, indeed, Moldova is much, much smaller when it comes to its economic power, but we represent a key strategic security point for the EU, which puts this partnership on a more equal footing, so to speak. And yes, narratives are circulating quite big, particularly in the online medium, which is now at the top in the polls, showing that this is where citizens get their information from. And obviously that is not regulated at this moment. Moldova has very little power to influence the regulations of the EU or of the news going through the online platforms and the social media platforms. And that's making us particularly vulnerable. This is why we're actually trying to this is the key message we're trying to send to our citizens, that this will not be free and fair elections. Therefore, the only way to combat the fraud that will happen is by coming to vote as many people as possible. I always like to draw attention to the referendum that Moldova had in October last year, where the question was asked whether we want to join the EU or not. The EU support among citizens is constant, is 60% plus. But because of the disinformation, because of the fraud that took place, where it was uncovered that about 150,000 votes were fraudulent, we got a very weak result, so to speak. So we should learn from that, because the Russians are definitely learning from that. That was a testing ground for them. We should expect that they will do the same or more damage to these elections, and therefore we should be ready for this as citizens.
Right. So from what I understand, the strategy of the government is to boost the turnout. However, reports say that Russia is buying the votes. It's as though that only small percentage of the money being sent is intercepted, 10 to 15% of the total. But in Moldova, with a relatively small population, every ballot counts, right? So with this strategy of the government, do you think it's a good one? And how is the government doing in countering these Russian efforts? Is the government doing enough?
There's definitely more that could be done, that's for sure. There is quite big initiatives in trying to catch the fraud that is happening, sanction it sooner rather than later, because that's also a big issue that we're facing. Sometimes these people that are on the Russian side, they decide to internalize the cost, for example, of a fee, just so they can, influence the election. So that timing here is very important. But however, more can be done for sure. We could, for example, the government could try to have these mobile teams that are ready for any sort of accidents that may happen during the elections. There is now a big worry of a type of carousel type of voting, where someone comes in with a fake ballot, they put it in the voting booth, and then they take the ballot that has been given to them, and then kind of it moves through different people as a way to change the vote. So more protections need to be done. There are cameras in the voting booth. We don't know yet if that's going to be sufficient. So obviously, with the government measures, alongside there needs to be citizen responsibility to come and vote massively in elections. Diaspora is a very big kind of block of voting that has historically been pro-European. In the last elections, they had 50% of the voting power. 15, and we are expecting or hoping that they will again come and choose the pro-European path, as this is a key, crucial election that will determine the future of Moldova for the next decades.
Exactly. So Moldova basically faces a choice between deepening the ties with the EU or remaining within Russia's sphere of influence. So how do these disinformation campaigns threaten Moldova's European path? Do you think that even if providing that the pro-Russian forces may win this election, this path towards EU is deemed lost? Or is it just an episode?
Polls right now sadly show quite different results, which means that the results will be very tight. There is a rather small difference between the first party and the second, and in different polls it switches. Sometimes passes first, the other time is the patriotic bloc kind of comes up on top. And another issue is that we have about a third of citizens that are currently unsure who to vote for, and that's still coming very close, right, to the election date. So voting will be unpredictable, and it can tilt in any direction on the 28th of September. Now, obviously, how will our path be just delayed or completely blocked? It depends on the election results. Some parties, even though they are made of politicians that historically have been pro-Russians, have been part of pro-Russian parties, they've now rebranded themselves as pro-European, or at least like more pragmatic. We're willing to work with whatever party for the well-being of Moldova. So we could end up in a scenario where PAS makes an electoral or an alliance with another party to continue the European path. That is better than having a pro-Russian party take majority, but still not ideal, because that means there could be deadlocks. A lot of decisions could be blocked or delayed, or there could be this constant pressure of political instability, right, where one small party can always threat that they will topple the government if something doesn't work out. So we really, really need a pro-European majority that will take us to 2030, where Moldova can join the EU.
Thank you so much, Mihaela Sirițanu, international relations expert, Watchdog.md. Fingers crossed for the just vote on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Moldovan go to the polls on Sunday, 28th of September. Thank you so much once again and for your insight, and see you soon. And thank you for watching World Talks here on TVP World. Please stay tuned.